Hello and welcome to Dancer Support Mission by Sabine Chalon for Shine Your Light. Today we have a new episode of Dancer to Dancer, Words of Wisdom. And the goal of those interviews is to meet the person behind the dancer and share with you all not only the highlights of someone's career, but also the challenges behind the scenes. Truly, my wish is to bring healing to the dance world, dancing to heal, healing to dance, one artist at a time and one personal story at a time. Hopefully this will allow you to embark or reflect on your own personal healing journey, inspired by others' experiences. So today I'm delighted to welcome Kathryn Bennetts. Kathy, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today.
You're welcome. Pleasure to see you again.
I'm really looking forward to that conversation. So I want to say that, you know, I've met Kathy a long time ago. The first time we met was in Amsterdam when you came to set Artifact with the company. I didn't dance in Artifact because I remember we were going on that Caribbean tour. We were this little group. I danced it afterwards.
That's right, yeah.
And then I met you again in Boston where you came to set in the middle. I don't know if you remember, because for me, it was a big turning point to work with you because you really pushed me outside my comfort zone. And I really want to thank you for that because, you know, it was not comfortable at the time, but you really showed me something else. You know, you were very piercing and very straight to the point, but in a beautiful way, because, you know, it was really productive. So I wanted to thank you because you might not know what effect you had on me at that time.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah. So, I mean, I always had such a warm memory of that time because it really helped me grow so much. And it helped me also take the direction that I took later, which is, you know, trying to figure out who I was a bit more before I start dancing. So thank you. And then, I mean, we met another few times here and there. So, I mean, the ballet world is quite small. So, I mean, you're going to tell us all about your amazing career. So if you can start by, you know, where did you start dancing? When, at what age, and why did you choose to dance?
Well, I started when I was 5 years old in Australia. My older sister was starting and I wanted to do what she did. And once I started, I really, I think, you know, like many people say, you don't really have a choice. I just loved it. And it decided for me instead of me deciding to dance. There was never a question. I told my mother at 5, that's what I wanted to do. And they laughed, but I never changed my mind, actually. I always felt like that. So I was lucky. I started in a local school and had a very good teacher. And she was very professional, had been a very good dancer. She danced in England and came back to Australia. And so I had a good training for the first, maybe from when I was 5 to when I was about 12, when I changed to a larger school in the center of the city. So, but I was very lucky that I had a good base with her.
Yeah, of course. And that was, which city were you in?
Sydney.
Sydney, okay.
Australia.
Right, so tell us then after that, because I mean, you started dancing also really early.
Yeah. Well, I guess it was early to be so serious, but a lot of people start when they're very young and it's half like a game in the beginning. It's fun, you know, it was just around the corner from our house. So I think there were lots of people my age starting at the same time in those days, you know, but I just kept going. And eventually when I changed to this other school, they thought I was talented. So they suggested that I, you know, go to like a bigger school with more classes per week. And there I had 2 English teachers who were very funny and very strict. But it was also a very good school. And they wanted me to audition to go to London, like most people did in those days, to the Royal Ballet School. But my parents, understandably, when I look back, you know, they didn't want me to already go there. And I was like 15 or something. So I went to the Australian Ballet School. I got into the Australian Ballet School and trained there in Melbourne, which was, you know, still a long way from home. It was an hour and a half flight from Sydney. When I was just about to turn 16, I was 15. So I was lucky to get in because it was very competitive. I think, I can't remember exactly the figures. I know they took 4 that year, 4 girls. And there had been something like 80 auditioning. So it was, you know, a tough. So that was a big step. And I stayed in the Australian Ballet School. And then I got in the Australian Ballet. That's where I started my career.
So what brought you to Europe?
Well, actually, we had my first tour when I was still in school, but about to get in the company in a few months. We went on a 6-week tour of Eastern Europe, and then we ended in London at the London Coliseum with Rudolf Nureyev, because he used to come and dance with the Australian Ballet quite a lot. So my first flight leaving Australia was via New Delhi, overnight in the transit lounge, and then directly to Moscow. And then we went to, oh my goodness, St. Petersburg, we went to Odessa, we went to Romania, we went to Czechoslovakia, we went all over the East Bloc. This was in the early 70s. And it really opened my eyes to a whole new world, of course. And then London, we ended with I think it was a 2-week season at the Coliseum. And then I had the travel bug. So I went back to Australia the next year, and then took, in our vacation with a friend, we came to Europe and we traveled and we did class with Marika Besa-Brasova in Monte Carlo. And then the following year, I was in the company 3 years. The following year, which was the end of my second season, we said we wanted to have extra time because we wanted to train in Europe, and they gave it to us, a little extra time, my best friend and I. And after that year, I thought, okay, so now I really want to go to Europe. So a friend of mine, another friend, we just decided we'd get on a plane and go to Europe. We had no job, we had no money. And I was very lucky that I ended up getting a job very quickly. So I don't know what would have happened otherwise.
Maybe you were talented too.
Well, I mean, it's always luck though, you know.
It's timing more than luck, you know.
Timing, yes. It really was timing in my case, because Marcia Haydee had just taken over Stuttgart Ballet, and because the direction was changing, it had been Glen Tetley before. Mm-hmm. And when he was leaving, some of the dancers he brought left with him. So there were some openings. And I remember I took class, and Marcia said, when can you start? And I said, well, now. And she said, fine, you have rehearsal in 15 minutes. This is your partner for your rehearsal. And it was Bill Forsythe.
Oh, wow.
So that was my first day. Yeah. That's how that
started your long friendship and
absolutely
relationship with Billy Forsythe.
Absolutely. And that was, you know, when I look back on that day today, it was such a lucky situation, you know, the way that it just turned out. And I'm very thankful that that happened. And that was the beginning of, like you say, a long history.
So how did you, because you stopped your career because of an injury.
Yeah.
So how was that?
That was very dramatic. I was doing quite a lot. I was like a demi-soloist, but I was doing soloist even / principal roles. And I had in those days, I tore my meniscus in class, just doing a glissade. I felt it go. But in those days, they were just starting to do this arthroscopy. It wasn't really, you could have it done in New York, you could have it, you know, but in Germany, they weren't really doing it yet. And my doctor said to me, well, you know, you could have an arthroscopy, you could go there, yes, and maybe you'd be back a bit earlier, but this will take maybe a little longer, but it's the same thing. Anyway, I ended up having a full open knee surgery, which was a huge operation just for that, when you look at it now.
Yeah.
And it all went very well, except that I came home the first day out of the hospital, I fell down the stairs. And I screwed up the whole, I tore my...
That was not luck.
No, that was bad luck. I had my inside cartilage operated, but when I fell, I tore my outside cartilage. So they had to wait a little bit before they could operate again. Cut a long story short, it was, a bit of a disaster. And in the end, I had 4 knee surgeries and I didn't make it back. I tried to get back to dancing. I was doing class, but I couldn't really.
So how old were you then?
I was 30. Actually, I think I might have even been 29 when I actually decided that I couldn't take it anymore. It was just painful and, it wasn't going to work. I was 30, but right at that moment, what I guess is also luck, our ballet master, Alex Ursuliak, had been giving a teacher's training program voluntarily to whoever wanted to do it, but you got a certificate. So we had done that for 3 years, like 2 or 3 times a week. We made certain hours to do it, and it was the full Vaganova program, plus discussions and all sorts. It was really actually fabulous. There were about 12 of us from the company doing it. And I had just finished that. And I had my certificate. And Alex said to me, oh, well, there's a position available in Italy, So right when I stopped dancing, I got in my car and I drove to Torino in Italy. And ended up taking over this state school that was run by Marika, actually, officially. She was in Monte Carlo, but I was running that school for about 6 months, which didn't last very long because it was, lots of problems there and financial problems and all that sort of thing. So I didn't end up staying.
A nice place to struggle.
Exactly. It was. I found out afterwards many people had been through the same thing in that place that I'd been through. But anyway, it was the beginning when I started teaching, and I got really good experience teaching there. And very talented kids. I mean, they had all been auditioned for this school and they were really talented. So it was a lot of fun. But anyway, after that, a friend had said to me, oh, there's a position in America as a ballet master in Arizona. So I ended up going to Arizona for a few years, and then the company went bankrupt. And then I was offered a job in Toronto in the National Ballet School. So I taught there in the senior school for 3 years, and I taught the company like a few times a year. I was there for 3 years, but during this period, I was guest teaching. In my time off, I would guest teach in Europe. So I was teaching at NDT, I was teaching at the conservatory in Barcelona, I was teaching in Zurich, I taught a few classes in Stuttgart already and Australian Ballet. So I'd sort of felt the pull of Europe again. Mm-hmm. So one time when I was in Frankfurt teaching, because I would teach there every year too, Bill offered me a job to come back full time. And so I ended up going back to Germany and was then ballet mistress in Frankfurt for 15 years.
Yeah, you're like his right arm, basically.
Yeah.
I was there. His ballet is better than him.
Well, there's a whole group of people now that stage his ballets, and also the newer pieces, which I'm less involved in. It's turned into this big organization, but in my day, it was just 2 of us, me and Glen Tetley, who were staging some of his works while we were both ballet masters.
Glen was amazing too.
Yeah.
What a nice guy, and such a fun.
So that was my continuation of my connection with Bill then. And at one point, I was offered the directorship in Antwerp. Out of the blue, I got a phone call, and I sort of thought, I don't want to be a director. I had never really thought about being a director, but I thought, well, I'll go and I'll look at the place. And quite frankly, when I got there, I was really blown away by the standard of the dancers. Actually, there was a lot of talent in that group. Mm-hmm. And there was a building that was very, there were 5 studios, a little theater in the building. It had a lot of potential. So I thought, why not? It was a challenge that I felt like I couldn't say no to.
I think you did an amazing job there,
Well, it was quite a challenge, but we had a wonderful time, actually. We toured the world all over London, Paris, New York, Moscow. I mean, we were everywhere. And it was a particular period in time, and we were the sort of company that wasn't huge. There were only 52 dancers. So it was still possible to really tour the world. And because we sort of filled this hole of a company that people could afford to bring, and we had an interesting repertoire, we were constantly in demand. So I was there for 7 years, and at which point the government, they never really wanted to pay for a ballet company. That was the problem in Belgium. They still don't. So it became a fight, because unless they were willing to pay, I sort of put my foot down.
How long did you stay in
7 years I was there. Yeah.
You did a lot, and I remember that.
We did a lot in a short amount of time, and it ended up sort of nasty in the end. But the memories of the actual work we did, and the dancers, I still have contact with quite a few. Still, call me out of the blue, and we talk about those times. But I mean, more them than me. In fact, it's sort of like everyone has a nice memory of that time, and I get reminded by that, by them quite often. And so after that, I decided, when I was leaving, I decided I would choose a city that I liked, and I made a list of cities I wanted to be then freelancing. And I chose Berlin for several reasons, because I lived in Germany for a long time. I speak the language. It's a great city to be a freelancer in. It's inexpensive, even though it's getting more expensive, but compared to other European cities, it's so affordable here. Mm-hmm. And I love Berlin. And so for the last 9 years, I've been in Berlin, and freelancing and staging Bill's works. At one point, I was teaching quite a bit. I don't really teach anymore. I was on juries. I was sort of on search committees for directors. I was sort of consulting in various ways. And actually, I love this freedom and just being able to do my own thing and pick and choose a little bit. So, yeah, it's been a big journey.
Yeah. So, but then you had no time to really more on your career as a dancer, really, did you?
Well, I was thinking about what you mentioned about the end of careers. For me, it was not so hard at that moment, although it was very dramatic. It was literally like I fell down the stairs. My doctor said to me, my knee was huge, and he said, I'm going to withdraw the fluid. If it's blood, your career is over. If it's just water or, inflammation, we can do something. But he kept drawing out all this blood. It was just like vials of blood, and because I had torn, quite badly things. So it was that dramatic, but one way it made it easy. I had no choice. I had to stop. I didn't have to think about it. And when I look back on it, it was a little bit an opportunity, because, and I think I even saw it like that at that moment. I had got to the point where I was doing soloist and some minor second principal roles, sort of like that. But I wasn't going to go further in Stuttgart, because that was when Marcia was still dancing, Béjart was still dancing. They were all, they had all their principals that were doing the big roles, and I had gotten quite far, and I don't think it was going to be that was going to get further, So I saw it quite practically that this was an opportunity to use my knowledge and to start teaching. So like I said, I think I was sad, and it was suddenly like, oh, my life is totally different. But I had to just keep going, get up and do it, because it was quite a dramatic situation. So I think it made my choice and my thinking about it too much more a practical decision than sort of an emotional one.
And you were busy, so I mean that helps also.
Busy right away, yeah.
If you're productive and doing something you like, then it's not as hard.
Yeah.
So, but what would you say has been your biggest challenge as a dancer?
I think that I had to learn how to not get upset and to keep going and to keep my focus if I wasn't chosen for a certain role, or I wasn't first cast in something I would have liked to have been first. I used to get very disappointed and let down and sort of not feel inspired so I had to learn how to get past that, and that was a steep learning curve for me, that I had to keep my focus and not become despondent if you felt like you missed out on some role, or it was very competitive. So in Stuttgart, and yeah, that was the main thing. Apart from that, I don't think I had any major problems. I liked working hard. I was always busy. I always had a lot to dance, but disappointments were hard for me to see.
This is why you actually, as I think from my perspective as a teacher or as a coach, you're very inspiring. I mean, that probably.
Well, I think without even noticing, what I try to do is I try to make people believe in themselves. And I very often say to people, look, you know, I believe in you. And if I believe in you, you have to believe in you, you know, because I'm giving you here a chance, and you have to take it, and you have to run with it, and you have to.
Me.
Yeah.
You made me cry.
But it's really true, because I think very often dancers second guess themselves, and they think, oh, I
beat themselves up, you know.
Yeah, I'm not good enough. And I learned also a lot from Bill, watching him coach. He's a master coach in making somebody feel good about what they're doing, you know, and finding a way to do it that works for them. And so I believe it's interesting you said before that, you know, you felt I was very honest. I always think the main thing, without being cruel, you just have to be straight with people, because dancers want that. They want to hear the truth without being hurtful, but just say, look, you know, if you did this, this would really work much better. The way you're doing it now, this is not working. You need to do that and that and that, and to sort of give them a positive direction to follow. And I think this can achieve so much. Absolutely. It really can. I saw it recently in a company I was working with just recently, and I decided to really push this one girl, and I saw the results, you know, and afterwards she thanked me, because it was really tough. I was pushing her, but, you know, she got somewhere and she felt like she'd achieved something, you know. I think that's what very often dancers don't.
Well, I think dancers feel when it's done from a place where you're gonna push because you care, and it's you're gonna beat them up just for the pleasure of it. You know what I mean? It's a very different dynamic. It's very powerful. I mean,
well, I just saw that. I sat and watched for many years how Bill achieved the results he got, how he got things out of people, and how he changed them the way they danced. And it's a very particular way of approaching it. And I guess I just sort of soaked some of that up by observing how much you can achieve if you just approach it the right way. Mm-hmm. And I think dancers don't always get that opportunity to have that sort of.
That's cool, and that's the problem. I think if it could be nurtured from the beginning, you know, create a platform that is really
encouraging.
Encouraging and nurturing, you know, instead of rules and rigid, and because there's still too much of this, you know. I think it feels like it's like people lack
empathy,
imagination too. Like, you can do it differently. You didn't like what was done to you, so don't keep on doing. It's like parenting, you know. If you hate it, don't do the same thing.
You have to find solutions to make. And I think you also have to be able to click into each individual and find out how they need to hear something said to them. You know, everybody's individual, and you maybe for one person it doesn't work what you're saying, and you have to find another way to get in and to make them understand and to make them feel what you're trying to explain. You know, I think it is. I often felt that I needed more training in psychology, you know, as a teacher.
Absolutely. I mean, I think even if it's not psychology, it should at least be managing people, because that's what we do. We manage people, and if we manage them with our wounds and our, you know, frustration, then it's pretty counterproductive to me, you know. I find that funny that this is not taken into consideration at all, you know.
I guess, I mean, I think it's changed somewhat. I mean, in my generation, when I was young, my teachers they were so tough.
Yeah.
They were so tough. And because I was sort of like a good girl who just wanted to do my best, it didn't really affect me. I just sort of was like, okay, I went with it. And I think kids, you can be quite tough with kids without being mean, but you can be quite tough.
Yeah.
They can take a lot of challenges. And I think in my estimation today, they're sometimes too soft on the kids, because you're not going to get results unless you push, but with like we've talked about, in a way that is going to help them. But they can really achieve a lot, and they have a capacity to work very hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
They want to.
It's also it's to make them understand why they do it. The moment they know why they're doing it, there's no issue anymore. They're not doing it for you. They're doing it for themselves. And
exactly.
It's always I've been also taught by people, who it was always like a bargain, you're not working hard enough for me, and I was like, what do you mean? I mean, I'm sweating like a pig. I cannot do more. And honestly, I was a hard worker too. So I never understood. For me, I was like, are you for real? I mean, can't you see? Maybe I'm not doing the right thing, of course, and I need to improve, but I don't know how harder I can work. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's you have to explain. You have to help people explain what you're, maybe if they weren't happy with how you're working, explain what it is that they expect from you, or how to go about something more, or you're teaching, so you have to teach.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, actually. I think it's such a beautiful job to do, right? Because you have such an impact on others.
Yeah, I didn't realize for the longest time, I had people come back and say things, and even like there was one girl who told me what I told her one day about her shoes. I mean, a long time ago, how I grabbed her shoes and I squished them up and I stomped on them. I don't even remember this, but she never forgot.
Yeah. Well, you cared, you were there 100%. You were there with the shoe,
Yeah, but you don't realize at the time, or I didn't, I think when I first started teaching, what an impact it has on people's lives also.
Yeah.
How you approach them and what you tell them, and they don't forget. No. The good ones don't, the interested ones don't forget.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. Okay, so if there was anything, no, it's not like this, but how am I going to formulate that? Do you have any regrets on how as a dancer, could you have taken different decision? Could you have had different mindsets? Or, you've talked a little bit about that, but is there something that pops up and you think, oh?
I think I could have been more confident in the beginning. I think I became more confident. When I did more, you slowly get more confident when you're given opportunities. But I was not exactly shy, but I was a good girl.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the syndrome, right?
Yeah, it's a bit how I'd been taught to be, always there, always being good, always working, reliable. But I think I could have been sometimes more of a bad girl in a way, I just sort of pushed myself, not myself, but, yes, pushed me more to the outside world and sort of been more available. But I think I got better at that. I was just, it's always overwhelming when you're young. You're new in a company and there's all these good dancers around you, and you have to find your place and you have to not step on toes, so to speak.
You have your own nature. You can't always fight it, right?
Yeah. But I am very determined. I was always very determined. So in a quiet way, I sort of found my way, but I wasn't going to give up. And I think that's probably something that has been, for my family, a difficult thing, that I was so stubborn and determined. But for my career, it was what helped me. And I think you have to be stubborn to be a dancer. You have to believe in this is what you want and stick to it and just keep going. Absolutely. So maybe I could have done that earlier. I could have perhaps grown up a little faster and believed in myself sooner, but I got there in the end, I guess.
Wonderful. So we've just gone through two quite weird years. How were those two COVID years for you?
Well, for me personally, it was okay because I had, I'm at a stage in my career where I had done a lot, and I'm now freelancing. Things got cancelled, like everybody. We had jobs cancelled, and nobody knew what was going to happen. So in the beginning, of course, everyone was just on Zoom calls and wondering what the hell was going on. But somehow I think it taught also resilience to people, because we sort of survived. And I'm talking about in not health-wise, but in the arts world, that people got through, actually, even if it was a struggle. Germany was quite a good place to be because they really respect the arts, and they give money to help people, freelancers. That also helps. I'm glad I was in Berlin in this situation, because, Berlin is the town that is centered around the arts, and it wasn't happening really. It was weird to be here and not to have all that going on, but they really made sure that the arts didn't die. Mm-hmm. And so personally for me, it was a bit scary, but once you realized that you were sort of going to be okay, it was just a matter of slowly getting back and trying to be healthy. And it's not over, and we all know that. And so I think it'd be lovely to say, and now everything's fine, but it's not. Yeah. So it's our new reality.
We got used to it.
Yeah. And for young, I was actually amazed in that period, the young dancers that I spoke to. I sort of asked, how are you doing? And a bit like that. And they're like, okay. And I suddenly realized that a lot of them, that was their reality, and they didn't know anything else, really. The kids that I was speaking to were all like audition age, and they were going looking for jobs, and they were actually fine. And it just showed me the resilience of youth.
Yeah.
That when we worry a lot about them, and we worry about what's going to happen, but when you're young, you just think for the future, and you move forward. And a lot of these kids I were talking to, they got jobs and they moved on, and maybe it wasn't the perfect job in the beginning, but they're still dancing and they found their ways. So it maybe taught them to be a little bit more resilient than my generation, that everything was just fine. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, it's great you can say that. I experienced more. It was tough, I could see how tough it was.
I'm not saying it didn't affect them. Yeah. I'm sure it affected them, and wasn't easy on a day-to-day basis. But what I noticed was, this was like the final class. So, this was Amsterdam, actually, at the School of European Ballet of John Eve, and they were like the final year, and they had a really good attitude. And maybe they had been helped well at their school by, they had been given a good sort of start, but they all just decided they were going to make it happen. And I was like, wow, I'm glad it's not me and it's you guys. But they were pretty positive. So I'm sure it hadn't been like that the whole time. They have
to cope anyway, because there's no other way around.
So by the time I was with them, it's like the end of the season, so they had already been through those difficult times, I think. Mm-hmm. During school year, where they were worried and concerned, they'd sort of come out at the end feeling, okay, we can do this. Yeah. So that was good to see.
Nice.
It actually surprised me, because I was not expecting that they would be so resilient. But then I thought back and I thought, well, when you're 18, you can get down about things, but then you turn around and the next day you move on,
Yeah, you have to find a way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so to wrap it up a little bit, if you had one advice to give to a young dancer today, what would that be?
Oh, there'd be many. I think it's hard to nail it down to
one.
Well,
you can give many. You can give 5.
Well, I think you have to be true to yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to sort of remove yourself from the big picture sometimes and just focus on you and what you're aiming for and not get influenced by things going on around you. It's a little bit like we just talked about, you know, in a company situation or even in a school situation, not to be affected by things that are happening in the whole dynamic of the group or whatever, but just to keep your focus. You have to be like that. Mm-hmm. And the people that do that have a career. They really do. They're the ones that directors like because they're always there. They're always
stand out too because it's very clear.
Yeah, they want it. They're always ready. And I think you shouldn't be scared to show that you want it. It's really okay to be ambitious. In fact, it's necessary for the people in the front of the room to feel your energy and to know that you're hungry. And so I think that's what I talked about earlier, that I'm not sure I felt that was okay to show that in the beginning. I was trying to be sort of, very polite, but I think not being nasty, but just to show your joy of what you do and that you really want to do it is very important for the people at the front to know. And to not lose your goal. That you have to have goals in life and what you would like, what you're looking to do, and to keep this goal clear for yourself and to work like hell every day. Yeah, it's an everyday thing, it's not just one day, it's every single day that you come in, consistent, that you do your class, that you finish class, that that's how you get there. And to not to forget why you danced in the first place. Yeah. It's easy when you're a young professional to forget that when it becomes hard and there's hard work.
Some people don't even know why. I mean, I've seen kids at 15, once they realize, either they stop dancing because they realize that it's not for them, or they go like, yes, now I know.
Yeah, but it's really important to ask yourself that. I did it once to a class. I sat them down. They were having a bad day. And so I sat them on the floor and I was like, okay, so who in this class really wants to dance? And I was the one that got the shock because there were people there for all sorts of reasons. Mm-hmm. What their mother wanted, or they just ended up coming. It wasn't that all of them really wanted to dance. So I think dancers have to really ask themselves that, definitely. Absolutely. And then just to go for it. So, and to remember the joy of dance. It sounds sort of cliche, but you did it because you loved it. So you have to remember that. Don't lose that in the daily slog.
Oh, that was wonderful. Okay, Kathy, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
More of your time. I really appreciated that beautiful conversation and all those beautiful words of wisdom. So everybody can get something out of that.
I hope so. Okay, Sabina, it was lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.